Good morning, it's Thursday the 15th of January and it's just coming up to about 10 o'clock in the morning. According to my weather app, it's going to be raining all day, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to get outside and do a quick video. So it's been just over a week since my last video talking about the passing of my mother, and since then I've finished the first draft of her eulogy, and the funeral is next Tuesday, so my sister and I are going to sit down and go through that this morning. And one thing I would say, if you're going through a bereavement, I'm very pleased. About a year ago I asked my mum if she could sit down and actually write in chronological order kind of a story of her life. Now obviously I was around for a fair chunk of it, but certainly when she was a child I had no recollection of her early days. And my mum was born in 1937, so she was part of what's called the silent generation. So you were seen but not heard, a post-war baby born into an era of rationing and conflict. So I'm really pleased that Mum did take the time and wrote out about 3 A4 pages of handwritten notes, filling me in on her early years of meeting my father, starting work, getting engaged and married, and giving birth to my sister and then birth to me. It was quite nice in a way, although slightly saddening or even slightly harrowing, sitting there looking at a scanned PDF of my mum's handwriting, which I took, I say, about a year ago. And my sister jokingly said, I suppose you'll just upload that to AI and get it to do your eulogy. So being the typical whiz kid that I am, I thought I'll do that, and actually it was pretty rubbish. So I ended up doing it the right way and the correct way, which is writing it myself. So in this series of my kind of walk and talks, I do mention about still carrying on with my knack tutorials, and if you're interested in seeing one that I've just done, then click up here and check that out. Otherwise I'll just carry on briefly and tell you what this week has been like. About 2 weeks ago now, when my mum passed away on December the 30th, me and my sister decided that the first thing we needed to do was go to the funeral directors and get the funeral booked in. At the time we didn't realise that the regulations had changed, and I'm not sure whether they changed everywhere in the UK, but certainly in Suffolk the process for obtaining the death certificate is far more protracted and stressful than we ever anticipated. And unfortunately, not naming any names, but our funeral director didn't really advise us. They didn't misinform us, but they didn't really advise us that we should have left more time than the 3 weeks that they booked us in for, bearing in mind the funeral is next week. So the process changed recently due to legislation from the serial killer Harold Shipman, who, if you don't know who Harold Shipman is, just Google him. He was a serial killer and a GP, and he was signing off his own death certificates, which obviously means there's a big loophole, and there now are checks and balances in place to make sure that GPs aren't killing their own patients and then signing them off. Obviously I support this legislation wholeheartedly and wouldn't want anything to have been done incorrectly following the passing of my mother. But once the certificate has been issued by the GP, it goes through to the medical examiner, and then they do their checks and balances, and if there's any suspicious circumstances it may get referred to a coroner, and only at that point then does it go on to the registrar for deaths, births and marriages. And we already had the funeral booked, plus we were off the back of Christmas, and apparently there was a junior doctor's strike, so they were short-staffed with a backlog. So all of last week I spent almost every day chasing this through, which really was pretty stressful and something I could have done without. The good news for us is we got the death certificate yesterday. We met the registrar, paid our £12.50 for each of the certificates that were required, and then went to the funeral directors and gave them the green slip, which apparently is the certificate that they require to confirm that my mother's body can be cremated. So now we are on Friday, which is just a couple of days before the funeral, going to see my late mother in the chapel of rest on Friday. And I remember when I went to see my father in the chapel of rest, I was very unsure whether it was something I wanted to do, whether I actually just wanted to remember him as he was rather than seeing him laying out in a coffin. But I decided to go as a sign of respect, and actually I'm really glad that I did. My father passed away. He had dementia and he rapidly declined, but during that time of his dementia he was very confused. He didn't know who he was, he didn't know who we were. And seeing him laid to rest in the chapel, ironically people say, oh, he looked at peace, but he did. He looked more like my father, who I felt I'd lost a couple of years beforehand because that person no longer existed. So me and my sister have decided that we will go to the chapel of rest together and see Mum for the last time before the funeral. Even though we haven't got to the funeral yet, life is beginning to quieten down and starting to fall into a new routine. Christmas is well behind us now. Everybody's back to work except me, and we're just still working through the process of dealing with Mum's things. So my sister has been working really hard in my mum's bedroom and lounge, going through all of her possessions. Now, we always knew my mum was a hoarder, but oh my goodness, there is so much stuff. We are finding envelopes with bits of paper, with scribbled notes and bits of string, birthday cards and Christmas cards going back years, diaries going back years. Some I've kept. In fact, I think currently all of them I've kept, especially the ones from the 1950s and 1960s. There's one particular diary which my sister and I were looking through, which documented the period of conception of my sister and how well that was progressing. My mum made some very interesting notes that I won't share about performance, should we say, and must try harder, perhaps would be the summary. So they were quite an insight, obviously never been shared with us before. And there are other things that we found, nothing sinister, nothing rude, but things that you find out only after your parent has passed away. So it's been a very interesting week, quite emotional, and actually my sister made an interesting observation that it feels like much longer since this happened. Often we say in life that time just whizzes by and weeks flash past, but it's only been just over 2 weeks since my mum passed away, and it really genuinely feels like a month. And I think that's probably just because of dealing with the sort of stress and anxiety of not only having to go through the administrative process for the death certificate, but also the process of going through all of her belongings and sorting those out. Now, it's always sad, but really there isn't anything else to do with Mum's possessions but to either gift them or certain things just have to be disposed of. Obviously, we've kept all of these sentimental things that mean something to us, and I've added them to my ever-growing memory box. I have a box full of things that I just can't bear to throw away. It's not a lot, but just those precious memories. But so many bags of clothes have gone to the Red Cross, which is good, but my mum really could have rationalised some of her wardrobe. Many years ago, we found a crop top that my mum used to wear perhaps when she was 30, and bear in mind she was 88 when she passed away. When my father passed away, I was working for a company called Data Techniques in Farnborough, and the managing director, Nick Crosby, very kindly, and he didn't have to, paid me compassionate leave after my father passed away and up until the funeral. So I'll always be very thankful to Nick for that. It really meant a lot. It was something that he didn't need to do. That was 9 years ago when my father passed away, and now, this time round, I've many more clients, not just one client, and quite rightly, no one's offered to pay me compassionate leave. So my sister and I both have had power of attorney from my mum for many years because she just wasn't able to do her own finances, and my sister is my mum's executor. Now, Mum redid her will just a few months ago to provision for a couple of charities and grandchildren, etc. And so my sister, being executor, and my mum very openly shared it, we both knew exactly what was in her will and financially what my mum's position was. Now, I've always shared quite openly with my clients that when I turned 57, I was on a gradual path down from full-time work. I went part-time at 57, and then it was a downward hill, hopefully to retirement when I reached financial independence. And I was planning on that being around 60 to 61 years old. And during this year, my plan was to do some digital nomading, and I actually originally was booked to be in Budapest now. I'd booked the whole of January to do a bit of digital nomading, not easy to say, and spend some time working but also travelling and experiencing another city and another culture. Since my plans to go to Budapest, obviously Mum became ill very quickly and then passed away, and that gave me a amount of time to reflect on what was important to me and could I afford to actually stop work now, and instead of doing a hybrid part-time digital nomad lifestyle, could I completely retire and become a full-time traveller and explorer. So last week, after many hours of deliberating over spreadsheets, looking at projections, looking at worst case scenarios, I realised with the very generous inheritance that Mum's left, it would be a complete waste to carry on transacting my depreciating time that I have for money that I may probably never get to spend. So I was excited but also slightly saddened to be sending emails out to all my clients. I didn't just dump them, I passed them over to two other very capable NAC developers, Craig Winnell and Amanda Mower. If you watch this, which you probably won't, I'd like to thank you for taking on a couple of fairly busy clients, and Hugo Cox, who's taken on pretty much all of my other legacy clients. Not that they're all doing things now, but they need a safe place to land as and when they have requirements or any issues. So last week was a whole process around letting people know that I was no longer working. I stopped with immediate effect. I am now fully retired. I intend to, at some point later this year, start to offer some tutoring and or mentoring in NAC Classic. I'm not a next gen person. And a bit of make.com for those of you that even know what that is, and Normand Defayette's KTL functionality. So I may do a bit of tutoring. I've done over 15,000 hours using the NAC platform and worked with well over 50 clients in the last 10 years. So at the age of 58 and a half, I've actually now officially retired. My late father, I thought he retired at 57, but we found some paperwork the other day that actually showed that he retired at 55. I was quite shocked because at 57 years old, I just got to a point of having enough money that I could go part-time, and I was doing 15 to 20 hours a week. So I was quite surprised to find that actually he went 2 years earlier than I thought. But then when I looked into his letter from the council with his severance package and his pension details, it was apparent that he actually started work at the age of 14 as an apprentice. So he worked from 14 till he was 55 years old. So that's a 41-year career. Now I left school, didn't go to university, won't be a surprise for people that know me. I've always considered myself not an academic, but I'm not unintelligent. And I started work at 17 and I finished at 58 and a half. So I did 41 and a half years in the workplace. So I feel I can nod to my father that I've done my time, and it's now time to step aside and let other people take on the race. So yes, that's it. I am going through that transition. I thought I would try and squeeze everything in the shortest possible time, ending a relationship, moving to a different county, dealing with the bereavement of my mother, and on top of that, I thought, why not? Let's just change my job position and retire as well. Anyway, I hope you got some enjoyment from this. I do enjoy the kind of the walk and talk. As I mentioned before, it's quite cathartic to get some of these things out of my head. I'll put a link up here to the video that I've done for NAC. At the moment, I intend to carry on doing the YouTube stuff for Knack for a while, and I will be pivoting into more of this kind of lifestyle stuff, but also as I'm booking up my travels, I will be doing some walk and talks from hopefully warmer climates, because today it's not particularly nice. Anyway, if you're still with me, thanks very much. Give us a like if you wish. Subscribe if you want to find out more and carry on with the journey. And yeah, as the name of this channel is now, don't forget, I'm not done yet. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.